I spent 15 years giving my daughter and her husband everything they needed, nearly $500,000. I paid their mortgage, their bills, their emergencies, all without asking for anything in return. But the one time I said no, my daughter looked me straight in the eye and said, "Then don't expect to stay here much longer." That was the moment I realized love without respect is just exploitation. My name is David Carter, and this is the story of how I walked away from the people I loved most. Before I begin, please subscribe to the channel and share where you're watching from in the comments. The dinner plates clinked against each other as I arranged them around the mahogany table. March evenings in Seattle still carried winter's bite, but our dining room felt warm. Too warm, maybe. Mark, my son-in-law, had that look again. The one where his eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas morning, fingers dancing across his tablet screen. "David, perfect timing." He swiveled the device toward me. Charts and graphs glowed blue against the darkened kitchen. "I've been working on something incredible." Sarah, my daughter, paused mid-step, a serving bowl of mashed potatoes suspended in her hands. "Show him, honey." I continued setting the forks, my movements automatic after 5 years of living here. Out of the corner of my eye, the family photos on the sideboard caught my attention. Sarah's wedding, the kids' graduations, Thanksgiving dinners, 15 years of memories, 15 years of checks written, mortgages paid, emergencies covered. "This is it, David," Mark said with the confident tone I'd come to recognize from his entrepreneurial speeches. "My IT startup. We've got the software platform ready. Beta testing is complete. I just need backing for servers and office space." He tilted the tablet toward me again. The numbers jumped out. $200,000 initial investment, projected returns, market analysis. My chest tightened. "I know you've always supported us," Mark continued, leaning forward. "This time it's different. This isn't a loan. It's an investment in our future. Sarah's future. The kids' future." My hands stopped moving. The last fork hovered above the final place setting. "Mark," I said, my voice rougher than I intended, "I've been helping financially for 15 years. Sarah's head snapped up. "Dad, this is huge for us." "I'm tired of being your ATM." Silence crashed over the room like a wave. The serving bowl in Sarah's hands trembled slightly. Mark's tablet screen dimmed to black. Sarah's face changed. Color drained from her cheeks, then rushed back in angry red patches. Her voice, when it came, carried a coldness that made the March air outside seem tropical. "Then don't expect to stay here much longer." The fork slipped from my fingers, clattering against the hardwood floor. "What did you just say?" I asked. "You heard me." Sarah set the bowl down with deliberate force. Mashed potatoes sloshed over the rim. "If you're not part of this family's success, maybe you shouldn't be part of this family at all." Mark reached for her arm. "Sarah, let's just—" "No." She shook him off. "I'm tired of tiptoeing around this. We've given him a home for 5 years. 5 years. And now, when we really need him, he turns his back on us." The room spun slightly. 22 months ago, after Margaret died, Sarah had insisted I move in. "Family takes care of family," she'd said, and now those same lips were telling me to leave. "Sarah, please." My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, older than my 75 years. "I didn't mean—" "Save it." She turned toward the kitchen, her heels clicking against the floor like bullets. "Dinner's getting cold." I stood there staring at the unfinished place setting. The fork lay where it had fallen, catching the light from the chandelier overhead. Mark cleared his throat, muttered something about checking emails, and retreated to his office. My legs felt unsteady as I walked toward the stairs. Each step echoed in the sudden quiet. Behind me, I heard Sarah moving around the kitchen, aggressively clattering dishes, making her anger known through sound. In my bedroom, I closed the door and sat on the edge of my bed. The family photos on my nightstand seemed to mock me now. Sarah at 16, radiant in her prom dress. Sarah at 33, holding newborn Emily. Sarah last Christmas, arms wrapped around Mark, both of them grinning at the camera. When had gratitude become expectation? When had my help become entitlement? Outside my window, Seattle's skyline twinkled in the distance. Somewhere out there, other families were having dinner. Normal dinners. Dinners where love didn't come with a price tag. Hours passed. The house went quiet, except for the muffled sound of Sarah and Mark arguing downstairs. Their words were indistinct, but their anger was crystal clear. At 9:17 p.m., I finally moved. The filing cabinet in the corner had been my constant companion since Margaret's death. Organization had always been my strength, a habit learned in the military and reinforced through decades of marriage. Every receipt, every check stub, every bank statement, all carefully categorized and stored. I pulled open the bottom drawer. The metal runners screeched in protest. A thick folder labeled Financial Records. Sarah and Mark sat inside. My handwriting was precise and methodical. Inside, papers rustled as I spread them across my desk. Bank statements, canceled checks, transfer receipts. A paper trail of 15 years' worth of help that had somehow become obligation. The wedding came first, June 2009. Receipts from the venue, the caterer, the photographer. My signature at the bottom of each. $50,000 for our princess, I'd told Margaret back then. She deserves a fairy tale. The calculator on my desk came to life with a soft beep. Numbers began stacking up. Monthly mortgage payments, $4,200, multiplied by 12 months by 5 years since they bought the house. My pen scratched across the notepad, $252,000. Then came the car payments. Sarah's SUV, Mark's sedan after his old one died. Insurance premiums when their credit couldn't secure decent rates. Each check photographed before mailing. A habit Margaret had taught me. Always keep records, David. The numbers grew. Emily's college tuition, $15,000 for the last semester alone. Jason's technical school, another $8,000. Christmas gifts, birthday celebrations, emergency repairs when their hot water heater flooded the basement, medical bills when Mark's startup health insurance lapsed, vacation funds for their anniversary trip to Hawaii, Sarah's root canal surgery that couldn't wait for their dental coverage to kick in. My fingers moved across the calculator keys like a pianist playing a funeral march. $300,000, $350,000, $400,000. The phone on my nightstand seemed to watch as I reached for it. Wells Fargo's 24-hour customer service answered on the second ring. This is David Carter. Account number. I recited the digits I'd memorized decades ago. I need to cancel automatic transfers to account ending in 4739. I'll be happy to help with that, Mr. Carter. May I ask the reason for canceling these transfers? My reflection stared back from the darkened window. Gray hair, tired eyes, but something new in the set of my jaw. I'm tired of being taken for granted. Cancel the transfers. 20 minutes later, I hung up the phone and returned to my calculations. The final tally made my breath catch. $487,000. Nearly $500,000 over 15 years. Margaret's life insurance, my military pension, our savings from 40 years of careful living, all of it poured into a daughter who believed I owed her more. At the bottom of the folder lay the power of attorney documents. Sarah's name printed in neat legal text, giving her access to my accounts for convenience and emergency purposes. My signature from 3 years ago stared back at me, given when recovering from knee surgery made bank visits difficult. I fed the papers into my desk shredder, watching legal authority turn into confetti. For the first time in hours, I smiled. Tomorrow would bring changes. Tonight, though, I'd sleep better than I had in months. My laptop screen glowed to life. I began searching for Seattle apartment rentals, downtown high-rises with city views, quiet neighborhoods near bus lines, one-bedroom places where the only family obligations would be to myself. The house creaked around me, but I barely heard it. I was already planning my escape. Friday morning sunlight streamed through the windows of the downtown Seattle apartment, casting geometric shadows across the hardwood floors. Kate Anderson, the realtor, gestured toward the kitchen with professional enthusiasm. Perfect for one person, Mr. Carter. Walking distance to Pike Place Market, bus routes to everywhere you'd want to go. I nodded, barely listening to her polished sales pitch. The space felt right. Clean, quiet, mine. She pointed out the park across the street. It has benches where residents like to read. Very peaceful after years of chaos. I'll take it, I said. Kate paused mid-sentence, her smile faltering slightly. Don't you want to see the bedroom, the bathroom? We haven't discussed lease terms or... I need peace more than square footage. I pulled out my checkbook. First month's rent and the security deposit. 2 hours later, I sat in my truck outside Sarah's Bellevue house. Her car was gone. Her Friday shift at the cafe wouldn't end until 3. Mark's sedan was missing too, probably parked outside his co-working space while he chased another big idea. The house key felt heavier than usual as I unlocked the front door. Moving through rooms I'd called home for 5 years, I made swift decisions. The photo albums from my marriage? Mine. My military service medals from the bedroom dresser? Mine. The leather recliner Margaret bought me for my 70th birthday? Theirs. They'd grown accustomed to it being there. The piano in the living room had been Margaret's pride. Sarah claimed it after the funeral, saying it would be perfect for when Emily brought her kids someday. Let her keep that dream. Boxmax moving service arrived at noon, with 3 workers and a truck that barely fit in the driveway. The crew leader, a young man with gentle eyes, approached me carefully. "Mr. Carter, we have you down for a 1-bedroom move. Senior discount applied." "That's right." I handed him a handwritten list. "Everything marked with blue tape goes. Everything else stays." "What about the piano, sir? It's a beautiful piece." "Leave it. It belongs to someone else now." The hardest part was Margaret's jewelry box. Sarah had insisted I keep it, saying maybe someday I'd want to give pieces to Emily or future granddaughters-in-law. But those conversations would happen, if they happened at all, on my terms. The envelope I left on the kitchen table was plain white. Inside, a single sheet of paper with 2 paragraphs. "Sarah and Mark, I've moved out. The keys are on the counter. You'll find I've canceled my financial support. You wanted independence from my expectations. I'm giving you independence from my assistance. Don't contact me until you're ready to apologize. My new address will remain private until then. Dad." My phone rang as I was signing paperwork in my new apartment. Sarah's name lit up the screen. "Dad, what is this? Your stuff is gone. There's a note. I moved out. You can't just leave. This is your home." "No, Sarah. It's your home, and I've taken your advice. I won't expect to stay any longer." Mark's voice joined in over speakerphone. "David, we can work this out. The startup thing, we can find other investors." "You told me not to expect to stay much longer," I said evenly. "I took your advice." I was angry. I didn't mean, "Don't come looking for me. Don't call again until you're ready to have a real conversation about respect." I ended the call and powered off my phone. Through my new apartment window, Seattle's evening lights began to twinkle. Tomorrow, I'd explore my neighborhood, find a good coffee shop, maybe visit the library. Tonight, I'd order pizza and eat it at my own pace, in my own space, with no one expecting anything from me except the tip for delivery. The revolving doors of First National Bank spun me into a world of marble floors and hushed conversations. Monday morning in downtown Seattle carried the weight of serious business, and I felt ready for it. My appointment with James Clark was scheduled for 9:30, but I'd arrived early. Preparation had become my new religion. Mr. Carter James stood from behind his mahogany desk, extending a firm handshake. He was 20 years younger than me, but his gray suit commanded respect. "I have your account information pulled up," he said as we settled into his office overlooking Pike Street. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I watched commuters hurrying to their responsibilities while I prepared to shed mine. "You want to cancel the automatic transfer of $4,200 monthly?" His eyebrows lifted slightly. "That's been running for 5 years without interruption." "Yes." I slid the folder I'd organized over the weekend across his desk. "And I'd like to review exactly how much has been transferred in total." James typed with practiced efficiency. Numbers cascaded across his monitor. His expression grew more serious as the tally climbed. "Jesus!" He caught himself. "Excuse me. The total is $487,000 over 15 years. That includes the mortgage payments, but also smaller transfers, emergency funds, tuition payments. Let them pay for their own house." The finality in my voice seemed to surprise him. He printed the statement summary, the pages warm from the printer. Each line represented another piece of my independence I'd traded for family harmony. By noon, I was sitting across from Robert Fisher in his law office 3 blocks away. His secretary had squeezed me in after I mentioned asset protection and estate planning in the same breath. "Asset protection at your age is wise," Robert said, spreading documents across his conference table like a general planning a battle strategy. "Irrevocable trusts, homestead exemptions, offshore considerations if necessary. I want to protect what's left from any claims my daughter might make." Robert's pen paused over his legal pad. "Family disputes can get complicated. The best defense is proper structure before problems arise." We spent 2 hours building barriers around my remaining nest egg. Nevada asset protection trusts, beneficiary designations, executive appointments. Emily's name appeared throughout the paperwork as primary beneficiary. She'd always been honest with me, never demanding, never manipulative. Emily gets everything through the trust, Robert explained as I signed document after document. Your daughter has no legal claim to these assets once the trust is established. The notary arrived at 3 p.m., a stern woman who verified signatures with military precision. Each stamp felt like another lock clicking into place. My financial fortress was becoming impregnable. Walking back to my apartment, I carried a leather portfolio of certified copies. The weight felt lighter than the mortgage payments I'd been shouldering for years. My phone buzzed as I climbed the stairs to my unit. A text from an unknown number. Dad, it's Mark. We need to talk. Coming by tonight at 7. I deleted the message without replying. Let him come. I had legal documents now, and something more valuable. The knowledge that I could say no without consequences that mattered. At exactly 7 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, Mark's face appeared, distorted, but recognizable. His expression was carefully arranged into apologetic lines. In his left hand, a bouquet of yellow roses. Store-bought peace offering. David. He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, scanning my sparse apartment with barely concealed disappointment. Nice place. Very minimalist. I accepted the flowers with polite neutrality, setting them on the counter without looking for a vase. Sarah sent you? I asked. She was upset after what happened Wednesday. Mark sank onto my second-hand couch, uninvited, crossing his legs with rehearsed confidence. You know how emotional she gets. She didn't mean what she said about you leaving. Sit down, Mark. I chose the armchair opposite him, keeping distance. When's the last time you remembered my birthday? His smile faltered. What? My birthday. When did you last remember it without Sarah reminding you? Mark's hands gestured vaguely. Entrepreneurial energy searching for an escape. That's not really... We're talking about important family matters here. February 14th, I said. Same day as Valentine's Day. Hard to forget, you'd think, but you have, for 12 years running. David, that's different, Mark said quickly. We're discussing the family's financial future. I stood and moved to the kitchen window, overlooking the street. His BMW sat parked illegally in a loading zone, hazard lights blinking like some self-declared emergency. Hospital visit last spring, I said calmly. Knee replacement surgery, 3 days in recovery. Sarah came once. Brought flowers from the hospital gift shop. You sent a card. Mark shifted forward, his tone sharpening. What does that have to do with my business proposal? I'm offering you an investment opportunity, not asking for charity. $200,000 to someone who forgets my existence unless he needs money, I replied. That's not investment, Mark. That's delusion. His carefully crafted composure cracked. Fine. You want honesty? Sarah and I have been carrying this family for years. Hosting dinners, managing your social life, giving you purpose after Margaret died. You owe us. My purpose now, I said evenly, is peace, without your constant demands. He jumped up, pacing between my dining table and the couch. You can't just abandon us. We have plans, commitments, people depending on us. Find another ATM. You'll regret this, he snapped. His voice climbed to a level that probably violated my lease. When this opportunity passes you by, when you're sitting here alone while we're successful. I'm already sitting here alone, I interrupted. The difference is, I chose it. Mark grabbed his jacket, movements sharp with frustration. This isn't over, David. Family doesn't just disappear because you're having some kind of senior moment. He slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Through the window, I watched him storm toward his BMW, yanking his phone from his pocket. The roses sat abandoned on my counter, still wrapped in cheap grocery store plastic. I was tossing the flowers into the trash when headlights swept across my window. A silver sedan pulled up. Sarah's car. She stayed in the driver's seat for several minutes, phone pressed to her ear. I had no doubt she was getting a full report from Mark. Friday afternoon, she finally showed up at my door. I'd been expecting her since Tuesday night, when she'd driven past my building twice in what I could only call reconnaissance missions. Dad, she said, holding a white pastry box and smiling like she was stepping onto a stage, I brought your favorite apple pie from Morrison's Bakery. The scent of cinnamon and false nostalgia followed her inside. She was dressed carefully, soft blue sweater, minimal makeup. It was the outfit she wore when she wanted sympathy, not authority. Just like Mom used to make, she added, setting the box on my counter. Remember how she'd bake one every Sunday after church? I remembered Margaret burning more pies than she successfully baked, but I didn't say it. That would derail her script. Coffee? I asked. That would be lovely. We moved through the motions of domestic normalcy, measuring grounds, filling the machine, setting out plates we both knew we wouldn't use. She perched on my couch with studied casualness, purse positioned for quick access to tissues. I've been thinking about when you taught me to ride my bicycle, she began, her voice soft and wistful. You ran alongside me for 3 blocks, even though your back was bothering you. That was 40 years ago. You were always there for me. School plays, graduation, my wedding day. You've been the most supportive father any girl could ask for. The coffee machine finished brewing. I poured 2 cups, adding cream to hers, just the way she'd always liked since childhood. Decades of caretaking, still automatic. When did you last visit me in the hospital after my surgery? I asked. Her performance paused. Dad, I was overwhelmed with work. The kids were having problems. Mark came once. You sent flowers. That's not fair, she said quickly. You know how busy things get. Emily drove up from Tacoma twice that week. Jason called every day. Sarah's lower lip trembled, a well-practiced signal. Are you punishing me for being human? For having responsibilities? I'm choosing independence over obligation. Sarah set her coffee cup down with a little too much force, the ceramic clinking against the table. I don't understand how you can just walk away from us, she said, her voice now edged with frustration. After everything we've been through as a family, after we opened our home to you, you're acting like we're the enemy. I stayed quiet, letting the words hang in the air. You've always said family sticks together, she continued, leaning forward. Now you're choosing to isolate yourself because of one argument. Do you know how selfish that looks? I met her gaze. Do you know how entitled it sounds to demand money as proof of love? Her cheeks flushed red. It's not about the money. It's about support. I shook my head slowly. If it's not about the money, why does your tone change only when I stop providing it? Sarah's eyes narrowed. Fine. If that's how you feel, then don't expect me to come around here anymore. That's your choice, I said, my voice steady. She grabbed her purse and stood abruptly. You'll regret this when you're alone, Dad. I'd rather be alone with self-respect than surrounded by people who see me as a bank account. She didn't reply, just yanked the door open and walked out, her heels clicking down the hallway until the sound faded. 2 days later, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Jason, my grandson, leaning against the doorframe with an easy grin. He was wearing a leather jacket and smelling faintly of gasoline. Hey, Grandpa, he said. Mind if I come in? I waved him inside. Coffee? Nah, I'm good. He shoved his hands into his pockets. Actually, I was wondering if you could help me out with something. Just $3,000 to pay off a credit card. I'll pay you back. I raised an eyebrow. 3,000? What for? Stuff I needed, life expenses. I walked over to the counter, pulled open a drawer, and took out a small white business card. Sliding it across the table, I said, My friend Paul owns a mechanic shop. He's hiring. You could earn the money. Jason glanced at the card like I'd handed him a dead fish. I'm not really looking for work right now. I just need the cash. Then you'll have to find it somewhere else. He stared at me for a long moment before shaking his head. Wow, Mom wasn't kidding. You've changed. No, I said. I've stopped being used. He shoved the card back toward me and left without another word, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the blinds. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when I heard a knock that didn't sound like a delivery. Through the peephole, I saw them. Sarah, Mark, and 2 people I recognized from photos but hadn't seen in years. Mark's parents, Thomas and Linda. All 4 of them stood in the narrow hallway, faces set like a jury ready to deliberate my fate. I opened the door just far enough to lean against the frame. Can I help you? Thomas didn't waste time. David, this has gone on long enough. You're tearing the family apart. Mark is a good man, and he's trying to build something for all of you. Linda stepped forward, her voice sugary but sharp. We should be helping young people get established, not holding them back. Don't you want to see them succeed? I met her gaze evenly. I've already helped, for 15 years. Weddings, mortgages, tuition, emergencies, almost $500,000. And in return? Forgotten birthdays and threats to throw me out of my own home. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Dad, I was angry when I said that. I didn't mean it. Yes, You did, I said quietly. And I mean this. I won't be used anymore. From the back of the group, Emily stepped forward. My granddaughter. She crossed her arms and looked at her mother. When did any of you visit him after his surgery? When did you remember his birthday without being told? You're all just mad he stopped paying for everything. Emily! Sarah's voice was sharp. It's true, Emily said, her voice steady. You've treated him like a bank account for years. The hallway erupted into overlapping voices, guilt trips, accusations, demands. But I'd already decided. I stepped back into my apartment, met Emily's eyes, and said, You're always welcome here. Then I closed the door on the rest of them. For several seconds, I stood in the quiet, the muffled sound of their arguing fading behind the door. I realized then that boundaries aren't walls to keep love out, they're gates to protect it. The next morning, I called Robert Hayes, my attorney, and we finalized every detail of the trust. Emily remained the sole beneficiary, and we added extra protections to make sure my accounts were completely off limits to anyone else. When I walked out of his office holding a leather folder of certified documents, I felt lighter than I had in decades. From that point on, my days were mine. Mornings started with coffee on my balcony, watching the city come to life below. No sudden knocks on my door, no urgent requests for money dressed up as family emergencies. Afternoons were for walks through the park across the street, reading by the waterfront, or chatting with other retirees at the community center. It was there I met Mary, a retired schoolteacher with warm brown eyes and a smile that seemed to understand more than words could say. She'd raised 2 kids who lived independent, fulfilling lives. We started meeting for coffee after events, swapping stories about the good and bad parts of family. There was no pressure, no manipulation, just companionship and mutual respect. Emily became a regular visitor, often stopping by after work with takeout or a book she thought I'd enjoy. We'd talk about her classes, her friends, and her plans for the future. Jason eventually reached out, too, not for money, but to tell me about his job at the mechanic shop I'd recommended. Guess I needed the push, he admitted one evening. Feels good to earn my own paycheck. Hearing that made me prouder than any business venture Mark had ever pitched. For the first time in years, I felt like my life was my own. I still love my family, but I love myself enough to stop letting that love be a weapon used against me. And as I sat on my balcony one warm spring evening, city lights flickering like distant stars, I realized I hadn't lost a home. I'd found one. It was late November, just a few days before Thanksgiving, when the knock came. Mary and I were in the kitchen, basting a turkey for a small dinner we were hosting for Emily, Jason, and a couple of friends from the community center. Through the peephole, I saw Sarah. She looked worn down, hair unkempt, eyes tired, shoulders slumped under a too-thin coat. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. Dad, she began, voice shaky. I lost the apartment. The landlord kicked us out last week. Mark's staying with a friend. I'm at a motel, but I can't afford it much longer. Please, I just need enough for first month's rent and a deposit. $5,000. I promise I'll pay you back. I kept my voice calm. Sarah, I love you, but I can't help you like that anymore. You need to stand on your own 2 feet. Her eyes darted past me into the warm glow of my apartment, the set dining table, the smell of roasting turkey, the sound of Mary humming softly in the kitchen. This is what you chose over your own daughter? She demanded. A nice home while I'm homeless? I chose self-respect over being treated like a bank, I replied. Mary stepped into view, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Her voice was steady. Sarah, your father has been helping you for years. Maybe it's time you help yourself. Sarah's jaw tightened. Mom would be ashamed of you for turning me away. I took a slow breath. Your mother would want you to be strong. She wouldn't want you to depend on anyone for your survival. That's the only way forward. For a moment, her eyes softened, and I thought I saw the little girl I used to carry on my shoulders at the county fair. But just as quickly, her walls went back up. Fine, she muttered, turning sharply. Have a nice life, Dad. She walked away without looking back. Minutes later, Emily and Jason arrived, bringing pumpkin pie and fresh bread. Neither of them asked about Sarah. They didn't have to. We ate, laughed, and shared stories late into the evening. My phone buzzed once with Sarah's name, but I let it go to voicemail and turned it face down on the table. Outside, the city lights reflected in the dark water of the lake. Inside, I was surrounded by people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could give, and for the first time in decades, I felt completely free.